You're harboring a criminal in there. That's what Maureen Caldwell screamed at me across my own front yard, her voice sharp enough to send the birds scattering from the oak tree out front. I stood there in my kitchen window, hands wrapped around a mug of coffee, just watching her clipboard tight to her chest, finger jabbing toward my barn like she'd cracked open some government conspiracy. You want to know how wildlife can get in a quiet neighborhood? Pull up a chair because the show's about to start. 6 people stood with her, all of them in those matching HOA patrol vests, looking like they'd been cast for some low-budget cop show. Clayton Judd, the biggest guy in the group, had bolt cutters at the ready eyes on my gate, like he couldn't wait to play hero. Here's the kicker. They had zero legal right to be on my property, let alone to mess with my lock. But they went for it anyway. The screech of those bolt cutters bit into the morning air, echoing off the barn, off the dust, off every neighbor who suddenly found a reason to wander outside and watch. I didn't move, didn't even shout. That's something my lawyer drilled into me. Don't engage, don't escalate, just document and let them make their own mistakes. So I set my coffee down, picked up my phone, and started calling. They just cut the lock, I told my lawyer, camera already rolling. It's on video. That's trespassing and property damage. She didn't miss a beat. Don't talk to them. Call 911. I'll start the paperwork. So I did. Watching through the glass, I saw them. Maureen leading the way, disappearing into the dark of my barn, like she was some TV detective about to find a dead body. 3rd incident this month. First time she sent a polite letter, gold embossed, all formal, saying my barn violated aesthetic guidelines and needed inspection. I responded with deed copies, a note from my lawyer, and a polite no thanks. My land's been here since 1983, before Riverbend HOA even existed. I'm not a member. I'm not subject to their rules. But that wasn't good enough for Maureen. She went public, blasted the whole neighborhood with an email about how I was a threat to community values, painted me as some stubborn, dangerous loner. Neighbors started asking if I was turning my barn into a junkyard. I kept every message, every letter, every call, uploaded security footage to the cloud, filed every threat away. My lawyer told me I was on solid ground. Legally, I was untouchable. But authority and power, well, they aren't always the same thing. Thing is, Maureen had spent a decade building up her ladder of control, and people believed her. But 5 days ago, something changed. I'd been working in the barn, sorting tools, when I heard movement. I ducked inside, carrying a sandwich, and called out softly, "You need to rest. Stay as long as you need." A familiar voice, grateful, tired, answered from the shadows. My old friend, the county sheriff, was staying in my barn, recovering from knee surgery. Didn't tell anyone. Didn't need to. So there I was, phone pressed to my ear, telling the 911 operator 6 people just broke my lock and entered my barn. I feel threatened. She kept her voice calm, but you could hear her typing police were on the way. And out in the barn, Maureen and her crew were stomping around searching for what evidence of my supposed crimes. Let me back up a sec. My uncle built that barn with his own hands. It's where I learned carpentry, how to respect a straight line, how to work wood until it almost glowed. He left it to me, and after I hurt my back and left the shipyards, I moved here for peace. That lock they cut through. It was more than metal, it was the line between my uncle's lessons and my own boundaries. Police arrived, blue and red lights flickering on my living room wall. Maureen rushed out face flushed, already spinning her story to the officers, claiming authority, pointing at me like I was the problem. But I had my folder ready, deed lawyer's letter, camera footage, everything. The officers took statements, reviewed the footage, and one pulled me aside. "You've got a strong case for trespassing and property damage," he said. "File the complaint." Maureen drove off, still ranting about community safety. Clayton and the rest slunk away. By noon, it was quiet. But if you think that was the end, you haven't met Maureen Caldwell. That evening, my phone started blowing up. Maureen had called an emergency HOA meeting. She was showing photos of my barn, telling everyone it was knocking 12% off their home values. No data, no source, just a made-up number meant to scare people. But I had my own appraisal, said the barn actually added value. I shared it with anyone who asked. 3 days later, a fancy envelope showed up supposedly from HOA law firm partners, demanding I fix my barn or face $500 a day fines and a court injunction. The whole letter was fake, no law firm, no registered attorneys, nothing. I sent it to my lawyer, who immediately flagged it as harassment and fraud. The county attorney got involved. Meanwhile, the online neighborhood group had turned into a battlefield. Moran was posting daily, calling me a menace. Most people stayed silent. Some took her side, but a few started asking questions like, did the HOA even have jurisdiction over my land? Moran deleted comments, banned users. One neighbor, Iris, was kicked out for questioning her numbers. Then Preston, a quiet guy from 2 blocks over, flew his drone over my property and posted clear video, no junk, nothing dangerous, just a good old barn. He got booted from the group too. Then came Moran's final play. She announced a mandatory inspection of my property, public and dramatic, inviting the whole neighborhood to watch her lay down the law. But this time I was ready. My lawyer told me to document everything, stay calm, don't interfere. The sheriff, still healing but determined, said, let her cross the line. We'll be waiting. Thursday night, as I worked late in the barn, the sheriff sat nearby, legal documents in hand. You've been patient, he told me. She's going to overreach, and when she does, it's game over. He was right. Friday night, Moran held a secret meeting, handed out packets, maps, schedules like it was a SWAT raid, not a property check. One guy even asked, what if I fought back? We call the police and say he threatened us. Moran replied, cold as ice. Even her security captain looked uneasy. Saturday morning, clear skies, a crowd gathering outside my fence. The lock on the gate, easy to cut by design, waited like bait. 8 security cameras, cloud backup rolling. The sheriff was inside the barn, radio at the ready, but dressed like any neighbor. I called my lawyer. It's happening. She said, stay inside. Let them act. At 8:45, Maureen rolled up in her SUV, convoy sunglasses on clipboard flashing. Her team cut the lock crack and the crowd fell silent. They stormed the barn, cameras out, neighbors whispering, is this even legal? I called 911, said the words I'd practiced. I feel threatened. There's trespassing. Send officers. Sirens were closing in. Inside the barn, Moran found nothing but woodworking tools, furniture, and just visible in the shadows, the sheriff's radio. She didn't know what to make of it. Then the barn door opened and Sheriff Boyd Thatcher walked out, badge clipped to his belt, limping a bit, but commanding the whole scene without raising his voice. Moran's face turned ghost white. The crowd exploded. She broke into a barn with a cop inside. Her own security captain stepped back, furious. You didn't say anything about a sheriff. The police arrived, regular officers in a tactical van, lights blazing, body cams rolling. Officer Morrison stepped up, calm. As you like, ma'am, you're trespassing. Moran tried to claim she was the law here. The sheriff shut that down, explained the deed, explained, I was never under HOA rules, explained how they'd destroyed my property and committed multiple misdemeanors in front of a live audience and a dozen cameras. Moran tried to rally the crowd, shouting about community safety, but nobody was buying it anymore. When the sheriff asked her for proof that my barn hurt home values, all she had was everyone knows it does. I pulled up my appraisal, offered to forward it to anyone. People called out their emails right then and there. Morrison handcuffed Moran. She shrieked about lawyers, about how everyone would regret this, but you could hear the air going out of her like a balloon that finally realized it's been tied too tight. The police took everyone's statements, gathered all the camera footage. My lawyer showed up sharp as ever and told the officers to charge everyone involved. We pressed charges, criminal and civil. And as word spread, neighbors who'd been scared of Moran started coming forward. Turns out she'd been embezzling from the HOA, faking invoices, even buying herself a car with association funds. The treasurer, Iris, brought me the proof herself, hands shaking but eyes fierce. The county launched a fraud investigation. Weeks went by. The news broke Moran Caldwell charged with fraud, theft, trespass, and more. The HOA board turned over new people voted in, including Iris as president. They changed all the bylaws. No more single-person decisions. public financials, regular audits, and most importantly, an official acknowledgement that my land was never ever under their jurisdiction. They even reimbursed my legal fees, 12 grand. I accepted not for the money, but because accountability means something. Life got quiet again. Neighbors waved. The barn stood just as proud. And the sheriff, now back on duty, stopped by with takeout one evening. Funny thing, he said they renamed the clubhouse to Integrity Hall. I laughed for the first time in a long while and watched the sun set over the field just like it did when I was a kid sanding boards with my uncle. People ask if it was worth it, all the stress, the hassle, the fight. I tell them the same thing. It wasn't about the barn. It was about boundaries. About the principle that no one, no matter how loud, has the right to cross a line that isn't theirs. Morin thought she was the law, but the law doesn't belong to one person. It belongs to all of us when we stand up and defend it. Now I walk my fence line, hand brushing over the wire, every post telling its own story. The barn creaks behind me, old stubborn, still standing. Neighbors nod, some apologize, most just keep walking. That's fine. Respect takes time to rebuild. But it starts quietly with boundaries, with truth. So here's my question for you. What would you have done? Would you have stood your ground even when the whole neighborhood seemed to turn against you? Drop your story below. Let's talk about what real justice means. And if you made it this far, smash that like button, leave a comment, and stick around for more stories where the quiet ones get the last word.